Hello, in this lesson we are going to cover the history of fiat currency and overall what fiat currency is in general. So let's first cover what fiat currency is. There's really two main sort of aspects to fiat currency, and it's essentially any money declared by a government to be legal tender. And this basically means whatever is declared to be legal tender, whether it's paper-based money or whether it's metal of some kind, whatever it is, it essentially allows you to pay your debts. And you might think I'm not in debt, so how does it apply to me? And essentially, the entire economy is just run on a debt-based system. I owe you something, you owe me something. So if I go to a store and I want to buy something, if I want to, let's say, buy a phone and that costs $1,000, that's not that ridiculous. These days, phones are costing that much. So $1,000, it's essentially I owe them $1,000 for that phone. And we we exchange the goods and the currency essentially at the same time, but the whole idea is I owe money because it's a debt, because I have received a product or potentially a service. So it's any money declared by government to be legal tender, and it is money without without intrinsic value. So this money that we have today, these notes, they don't have any actual true value apart from the value that we perceive from it. They don't essentially create innovation. They don't advance the economy. It doesn't help drive ideas, creativity, any of that stuff. So it is a money-based system with no intrinsic value. And also, I think what is cool is to know the etymology of words, and the word fiat. The word fiat is a Latin word that means let me rewrite that. Let it be done. So it's a Latin word that means let it be done, and it's essentially used in the sense of an order or decree. So something has to be done. So that's essentially what fiat means. And it was introduced as an alternative to commodity money and representative money. And you might be thinking, okay, what are these? You've probably heard of commodity. I'm sure you've heard of both of these words, but I'm positive that you've heard of the word commodity when it comes to currency and just economics in general. And a commodity-based money is essentially a money that is based on an actual physical material, a commodity. So historically it's been metal-based. So gold, for example, silver, for example. On a side note, the reason that on the periodic table that gold is AG and not like GO or GL or GD, which confuses a lot of young people that are learning chemistry, is because it actually stands for argentum, and in Greek times, argentum was the color for gold, and actually, no, sorry, I'm talking about silver here. Silver, sorry. So that should be more of a silvery color. So AG is for silver, and it stands for argentum. In Greek times, it was essentially the word for silver, like the actual, what's it called, the color silver. But then in a bit later on in Roman times, it was essentially argentum was essentially the word for money because they used silver. So that's just a bit of a side note. So going back to this, commodity money is a money that is essentially a physical material, and that is what is used to exchange. So if I were to go and buy this $1,000 phone, instead of exchanging $1,000, I would exchange an X amount of, let's say, metal. Let's just say silver in this case. Maybe it's 1,000 silver coins, or 1,000 grams of silver, and that's where a commodity money is. Then representative money is a sort of a fiat-like currency. It's like in between, that is backed by a sort of material, a commodity. And this is essentially the currency that we had for a long time when our money was backed. Well, that case is terrible. When it was backed by gold. We were still using sort of notes that said, let's just say $10 on it, and he had some sort of face. That's literally the sort of face it had on there. It had some writing as well, but this was actually backed by some sort of material which you could actually go to the bank, exchange your money for an equivalent amount of commodity, whether it was gold, silver, or whatever standard was being used at the time. So it was introduced, fiat currency was, as an alternative to commodity money and representative money. It's not, let me do this all in capitals, it is not finite in its supply. Fiat currency isn't, because the government can just issue more, whereas a commodity based system, and even I would say really a representative money based system, there's only a limited amount of, let's say, gold in the world or silver in the world. So there is a finite amount, and that's sort of very representative to what we have in the form of cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin. And that's what essentially it's modeled after, is what we used to do with commodity based money, where there was a finite supply, but the actual perceived value of each, let's say, gram of gold might increase. So you might be able to get more per gram of gold. So it's not like once it was all mined, there couldn't be any fluctuation in terms of what you could get with an X amount of gold. It was just there was a finite supply. So that's basically what fiat currency is. And I also want to talk about the evolution of payment systems. And there was commodity money initially. Commodity money. Then there was representative money. So this built on top of the commodity based money, basically just created an abstraction layer. Then there was fiat money, which is what a lot of the world is today. And then there was stuff like checks, which was essentially just saying you'll get paid at a later date, and you could just exchange it for some sort of fiat based money. You just sort of added a convenience to fiat money, so you didn't have to always be giving the, let's say, the notes, for example, to the other party. You could give a check, for example, and they could just check it in whenever they wanted, whenever they were able to, and that was just a little safer as well, instead of carrying huge sums of fiat-based money. Then we had electronic payments, such as wire transfers, and again this was still heavily based on the fiat currency system. So you could go to, let's say, Western Union, for example, somewhere that would do wire transfers, take $1,000 and they would transfer that to somebody else potentially around the world. And then after that, this is essentially the main money system we have now in electronic, in 2017, and this was electronic money. And this is debit cards. And yeah, technically this is just another abstraction layer for the fiat money, but a lot of the world's money is actually not backed by like a physical note, essentially, because there's not enough notes that have been printed. Most of it is just ones and zeros in databases and in computers. So a lot of it isn't in paper form. I think that's really cool to know. There's only two main dates that I'm gonna cover in this video. There's a bunch of other intermediary dates. They're more just when other countries and regions adopted fiat currency. But really, I would say the main one is the first use, and the first use of fiat currency. First use was recorded in China in roughly 1000 CE. And the next important date is 1971. And in 1971, Richard Nixon, he removed the backing of gold from the US dollar, because for a while it was like I was saying, a representative based system where it was backed by a certain commodity, which in this case was gold. Then Richard Nixon removed that and other countries around the world followed suit. So this has just been a quick overview of the history of fiat currency. If you would like to know more, feel free to reach out. And as usual, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my next lesson.